The topics we're debating are first, DBD is killer-sided. I believe DBD is inherently survivor-sided, and that insult. And the second topic is that insults and harassment are toxic. Actually, what was the thing you said? What was the exact prompt?
I said that personal insults and harassment outside of the game, like after a match, are not trash talk. Like,
All right. So that counts as toxicity and not just oh, haha, funny. We're all having fun and talking shit about each other, right?
yeah, I mean, there's people who like do that stuff or like get personal after a match, and then they justify it by saying it's just gaming trash talk when it's not. I think that's a cop out thing. I think gaming trash talk is when you're
Right.
in the match saying, "Oh, fuck this Meg," or "fuck this Wraith," or "fuck this whatever." I think when the match comes to an end, I think the game trash talk also ends, and when it starts to get personal, it's no longer game trash talk. That's
Okay. Well, in that case, I only half agree with you then. I think insults are cool regardless. I think harassment is just straight up not okay. I don't see a single reason why you would go out your way to harass someone or should go out your way to harass someone.
so. When you say insults are cool, what do you mean by that?
Well, I as long as you're not insulting someone based off of characteristics they can't really change. For example, if you're gonna uh, make fun of someone for being short, I don't think that's cool. That's not they can't really do anything about that. But if you want to make fun of someone for having a really stupid opinion, I think that's perfectly fine. Or playing the game a certain way, I think that's perfectly fine.
I mean, I've always said I think if it's in the realm of the game, that's why when I specify, I say like personal insults. Because
Okay.
if it's like, oh fuck, you camped or you slugged or you suck at the game. If it's about Dead by Daylight, I don't really consider that a personal insult because it's still in the game. Like and you could call it salty or entitled and stuff like that. But and people are like, oh, just complaining about playstyles and stuff. I don't really consider that. I would consider that game trash talk, even if it can be silly and salty and entitled and whatever. But again, my issue is more with the personal insults, which I think is kind of where you're agreeing that if it's like about someone's appearance or about someone's like viewership or
No,
things.
I'm cool with you making fun of someone's viewership. If you want to make fun of, like, say, if I'm streaming, I got 0 viewers, and you're like, "Ha, Lud has 0 viewers," then I think that's completely kosher, in my opinion. I do have 0 viewers, so that's fine.
Right.
Um,
But you're
a
but,
little below the belt, but not inherently toxic. I don't think. I also don't think that uh generalized insults, like for example, I don't think calling someone the R slur. I'm only calling the R slur here because you specifically asked me to not to say any slurs, and even though I don't consider the R slur a slur, I'm assuming that would count under your specifications.
well, yes,
So I don't think.
it would, and it would also get me banned on Twitch if you did say. Well,
Oh, in that case, yes.
it wouldn't get me banned on Twitch, but I'm saying if it was a word that I was using on Twitch or that we were using on Twitch, that would.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it is definitely
Yeah.
considered a slur by most TOSs.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Cool. Um. There is only one. The only time I would consider using the R slur like actually toxic or an actual slur is if you're using it to make fun of someone with an actual developmental disability.
So
Right.
when you're calling
It-
somebody that on the internet, how do you know whether or not they have a learning disability?
well, typically they don't. Like
How do you know
the
that?
vast majority of people, um, I mean, you can't know anything for sure, but like 97, 99% of people do not suffer from mental retardation.
Okay.
That's
Do you
very uncommon.
do you understand? I mean, that's like saying I can call someone the F slur even if I don't know that they're gay because more people aren't gay than aren't gay, or I can call someone the N word because I don't, I think that they might be white. Like I just don't think that.
I don't necessarily think you'd call someone the N-word because you think they're white, but but yeah,
I'm just people often
I-
just use these words as insults because they know that they're kind of like hard hitting, edgy words.
right. But I'm going to flip the question on you. How do you know they're gay? How do you know they're black? How do you know they have a developmental disability? Right? You really don't.
That's the point. That's why I think it's better to not use those words because in the chance that they did, then that would directly be a personal insult to them. Or on the flip side, maybe they have, maybe you're playing with somebody who has a younger brother who has Down syndrome or has a learning disability. Maybe there's something, a personal attachment there to or to a mental disorder of some kind. Maybe they had a parent who was in a car wreck and now they are like mentally challenged and like can't function properly anymore because of an accident. It's like you don't. There's a lot of things that stem out from people having reactions to these types of words, and I think, kind of going off of that, I think the reason that people do consider the R word a slur is because the same reason people consider the N word and the F slur a slur is because these are words that have historically been used to bully and shame these specific groups of people. People who are in special ed classes get called that word in elementary school, middle school, high school. That is a word specifically used to make fun of people who are like have a disability of some kind. So I think just using that word in general, that is more often than not used to make fun of somebody in that group. I don't understand why it would be used in general or why it wouldn't be considered a slur, because it fits the full definition of a slur.
All right, so I'm going to put two pins in what you said. The first pin is in the you seem to be under the impression that it's best to play it safe rather than just, I guess, be a reckless dickhead and potentially offend someone, right? I think is that your point of view?
Yeah, I just think if you can use other words that aren't slurs, just use other words like dickhead or something. Like
That's a nice one.
why
Or
use
silly
why
Billy
use
or
I mean there's really only a few select words that are considered slurs, right? So if you just take those words, there's so many other good ones that you can use that I just don't understand the need to use those words specifically when they are slurs and are used to discriminate against people who can't help who they are.
Cool. Yeah, I understand your point of view. I'm putting a pin in that because one thing I really want to, we'll get back to that later. The first thing I really want to tackle is intentionality. I think intentionality and context are the two most important things in determining what is okay and what is not okay. I think using the intentionality behind the word is extremely important because by the logic of, hey, let's play it safe so we don't offend anyone, someone could be offended by silly Billy or goofball or dickhead, right? So it's like trying to play it safe isn't necessarily, I wouldn't really call that reasonable, especially because it's not my responsibility to make sure that you have a good time on the internet, and nor is it your responsibility to make sure I have a good time on the internet, right? I don't think it's your responsibility to make sure that you don't say something that offends me, and nor is it my responsibility to not say something that would offend you. That's why I think intentionality is extremely important. Like if I'm going out my way to call a black person the N-word specifically to offend them and to hurt them, then yeah, that's fucked up. I shouldn't do that. But if I'm just angry at a video game in general, right? Like say right, say I'm playing a very bad match and I let an N-word slip, right? Or I called the killer an N-word, right? I have no reason to believe that killer is of any specific ethnic background. In fact, that's not even important to why I'm saying the word. I'm saying the word purely out of anger, right? It's not intended to be directed at the killer. In this example, I think so that's one of the reasons I think intentionality is extremely important because I mean yeah the polite thing to do would be to play it safe. I agree with you, but again I don't have to be polite, nor should I necessarily be polite. Does that make sense?
I would say it does not make sense because the argument of, well, I could say silly Billy and that could offend somebody, that it doesn't really hold up because there's these words. Silly Billy isn't a slur, and just because words could.
So you believe the words themselves hold power?
I mean, they do hold weight because they have history, absolutely. Because they bring up things that people have gone through historically.
I don't think they should hold weight.
but whether you think they should or don't think they should, they do. And I'm not going to assume your race, but especially if
I am white. I am Caucasian.
okay, right. So us as white males, like, and if you're are you straight as well?
Bisexual.
Okay, well there you go. Like, so, but I'll just speak for myself then. Me as a straight white male, don't feel like I really would be able to say, oh, nobody should get offended by, being called the F slur or the N word or any racial slur. And I also don't have any mental or learning disabilities. So I don't think I'm in any place to be like, oh, I don't care if people say the R slur. It's like, well, yeah, because there's none of that is associated with me. And even if I was any of those things and it didn't bother me, like if there's other people that it does bother, I just don't see. And you can use the argument of, yeah, I don't have to be nice. I don't have to worry about other people's feelings. And you know what? To a degree, that's true. Obviously, you still can't, when you're on certain platforms, you can't say those words because it's against TOS. But you're right. You can say, you don't have to be nice or cater to people's feelings. It's more so of, if you can avoid making someone feel like shit, why not? Like, not that you have to, not that you're obligated to, but if you could avoid making someone feel bad about themselves for something they can't.
I do try to make sure people have a decent time. I'm not coming in here foaming at the mouth trying to ruin your stream or call you names. I try to be polite and cordial as much as possible. I don't really think that anyone really cares about this shit. Like, if in my experience, people don't actually care. People pretend to care. I think there's massive social repercussions if you don't care, but I don't think people actually genuinely care. Like, if I were black, I wouldn't care if someone called me the N-word. It wouldn't affect me.
See, it's just really tough to say as a white person.
No. And the reason why I know most people don't care, right? I'm getting ahead of myself. The reason I think most people don't care is because it especially with the N-word, people say the N-word all the time in rap music, right? Like if the word itself had power, if the word itself was offensive, if hearing that word really hurt people that badly, it wouldn't be in most rap songs.
I don't think people use that version of that word in rap songs. I think that I don't like that argument because that version of the N-word is definitely an entirely separate thing. That's a cultural thing.
No, it's AH, same thing.
It is not the same thing.
Like, if I said AH too, if I called a random black person an AH with hate in my heart, that'd be fucked up, right?
I mean, again, it's a cultural thing, and it's not something that you and I as white guys like have anything to do with, or really have like a hat in the ring to talk about, because
we're white.
Yeah, because we're white guys. Why would that?
Why not? Okay, see, if the word actually offends someone, it's going to offend them no matter who says it and no matter what context. I had a buddy back in basic who wouldn't even listen to most rap music unless it was Will Smith, because he genuinely hated the word, right? That genuinely offended. He didn't care who said it, under what context. He genuinely hated the word. That actually, the word itself actually hurt his feelings, right? Okay. So, like, that's someone who genuinely cares about this shit. Most people don't genuinely care about this shit. Most people pretend. Most people are like, hey, let's be nice to other people. Maybe someone might care about this shit, but I don't think most people actually care. And I'm not convinced most people do care.
See, I think that's a bad assumption and generalization to make, because just because people are... I mean, if people are avoiding saying these things because they don't want to hurt people, that inherently means that they care. If they care enough to remove these words from their vocabulary just to avoid hurting someone's feelings or making someone feel bad about themselves or bring back any kind of past trauma, if they're willing to make that sacrifice, it's not even a sacrifice, really. You're just not saying words. But if they're willing to do that, right, yeah, that means that they do care. If people didn't care, then they would just fucking let her rip. But like, I have a lot of black people in my community, in mods, and I have a lot of trans people in my community, and I have a lot of gay people in my community. And so, you know, there's a lot of like people that I do care about and people whose like feelings I care about. And it's because I do care. So I wouldn't say any of these words because I don't want to hurt them, and I don't want to hurt anybody else that could be affected by me saying that. So when people avoid saying these things, to say it's, well, they don't actually care. If they didn't care, then why would they even avoid saying it?
I'm sorry. Are you asking me why the people who aren't in that minority group avoid saying that if they care, or if people inside the minority group
I
avoid
just
saying
mean
if they care?
people in general. Why would I'm guessing you're gonna say they don't say
Because
it
there's massive social repercussions if you don't pretend to care. If you say the R slur on Twitch, you're getting banned, right? That because we've as a society have collectively established that, hey, these things are bad, but that doesn't. But just because as a society we think that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It's just common culture. Like I can't speak for you or any of your friends, but none of my friends give a shit. No, none of them care. Like they say it way more than I do. It's not even part of my vocabulary. I just an example I brought up because it's, I guess, it's the most culturally relevant example. I don't fucking know. First thing that came to my head.
So
Yeah,
the thing with a lot of this is like it's coming from a place of like, you don't give a shit. You're thick-skinned. Nothing bothers you. People can say whatever they
it's not
want.
just me.
No, I know, but it's coming from that. A lot of your opinions are coming from that you, because you don't care, and you have other friends who don't care, and it doesn't bother them. But like, again, that's kind of like living in a bubble in a sense, because if there are a lot of people out there who do care and a lot of other people out there that it does affect, then, you know, you're choosing to live in that bubble of, well, you know, I don't care, my friends don't care, why do people care so much? Well, because people care, because people do have feelings, and if you want to joke on people for being sensitive, that's totally fine, but sensitive people exist and people are allowed to be sensitive. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody is the same. People are going to be more sensitive than other people are going to be, and especially in today's times when people's mental health should be a driving factor in how we treat each other, because mental health is so important. And there's lots of groups of people that, you know, the suicide rates are super high because their mental health is so shitty. I just think that, you know, it just doesn't.
Do the suicide rates have to do with people being mean to them on the internet, or other outside factors?
I think there's a lot of things that contribute to it. I think,
Because
like,
I find it very hard. I find it very patronizing to assume that people are going to be so broken up over a fucking word, or people are going to kill themselves over a word.
when people, here's the thing.
It doesn't matter. It
Listen.
doesn't matter what group you're part of. No, very few people are that sensitive.
When you are depressed and when you are suicidal, you are often on edge, and everybody has a breaking point. So while it seems like, oh, it's just a word, or, oh, I just said this one thing, there's no way anybody could be this sensitive over this one thing. What if that person is already on the fucking edge? What if they're already at the breaking point? Because the people who are going through a mental health crisis and are severely depressed and going through shit, like, sometimes that's all it takes. And we've seen that happen with so many different people, where it's just something some kid says to somebody at school. They make a fucking comment about their weight or about whoever, or about whatever it is. And then they go home and they fucking kill themselves because that was the last straw. And you're like, oh, is it really just because you're going to say if I call somebody fat, then that's going to make somebody want to kill themselves? Maybe, no, not just the one comment, but if that one comment is the final.
It might. If you're that over the edge, if you really are about to break, literally anything could send you over the edge. It doesn't have to be a word, any single word specifically, even if it's towards the group you're part of.
But understanding that, like, negativity and like especially something that's like a personal kind of attack to something that makes you feel bad about yourself, that's definitely going to be.
Yeah, and if it's intended as a personal attack, 100%, yeah, it's fucked. You shouldn't do that, especially if you know they're suicidal or even suspect they're on the edge and about to break. But if it's not intended as a personal attack, if you're just saying the word in a video game, out of rage for you don't even care about the person on the other side, right? It has nothing to do with them.
What I don't
If it's not a targeted insult at a certain person, you can't really make that argument.
Here's what I don't get. Okay, let's just strip everything away. Let's just start from scratch right here. If you're upset over a game, and let me just say this first of all, if you're sitting at home on the couch just playing the game and you get mad and you scream the N-word and nobody, like you're just alone at home gaming and nobody but you and your friends and your Xbox party hear it, whatever, right? Because nobody's going to hear you say it anyway. You know what? Nobody even knows. It's your own little dirty secret. It's more so when you're streaming or when you're saying it in the end game or messaging people, like when you're saying it in front of an audience or saying it in that context where it's like it's out there. It's like, I mean, if you just shout it out when you're gaming alone in your room, nobody's going to know that anyway, right? It's like you have to, if you're saying it directly to them or like as an insult, that's a whole different story than if you're just shouting it to yourself in your room and nobody hears you, right?
And that definitely is different. You're right. I would. Yeah,
I don't think anybody cares if you're gaming alone in your room and you're just like in an Xbox party chat or whatever with your friends. Nobody cares what you say. Nobody cares how many slurs you blurt out because nobody can hear you. The players you're playing against can't hear you. Nobody on Twitch or YouTube or anywhere in the world hears you because you're privately in your room.
Should you care though?
What?
Should you care though?
Should
you care if someone's saying gamer words in their Xbox party chat by themselves? Should you care?
Again, if it's privately and nobody else can hear you, then why would it matter? Because who is it affecting?
I mean, they said the word, didn't it? And it could affect someone. Who knows?
Who would it affect?
I don't know, man.
And the term gamer, I don't think putting them in the category.
You don't like me using the word gamer word?
I just don't. I just think that's a little bit. I mean, it kind of like softens it up, makes it seem like the words are just, you know, they're just silly gamer words.
I am trying to in my eyes they are silly little words, but I'm trying to add a little humor to it. I'll go back to the N word. It's fine. I don't mind.
But again, stripping everything to the baseline of starting from scratch, in terms of whether you're streaming or whatever, if you are mad and you need to shout something out, and to me, in my mind, I'm like thinking to myself, why any of these words out of the entire dictionary? Why any of these very few, literal handful of slurs? Why? Why are they the go-to?
I genuinely don't have a good answer for you. Probably because it was part of gaming culture back when it first really started, so I'm guessing that's why it stuck around. I don't use them myself.
The reason people used them back in the day, or probably even today, is because people want to say the most edgy and most offensive thing ever because they want to get a reaction most of the time. They want to get a negative reaction. And which inherently makes you, like, use your own words, makes you a dickhead. And also, aside from that, I think
not exactly. If you're using it to specifically just to insult someone because of their race, yeah, you're a dickhead. But if you're doing it just to be an edgy boy, like, that doesn't make you that just makes you an edgy boy. Like, who cares?
So you think that insulting a stranger, calling them.
Yes, I am perfectly fine with insulting strangers on the internet. They should be perfectly fine insulting me.
And you say that that's not toxic and it's just trash talk.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't agree there. I don't understand. I think that there's a very clear distinction between just gamer trash talk and just blatantly insulting somebody and yelling out very intentional and specific words to get some sort of very negative response or to specifically offend people. I think that is beyond just gamer trash talk. I think that the intentions are very clear there when that kind of stuff is being said and yelled out. And when you're like, that's not just gamer trash talk. You're not just trash talking in the game. You are going out of your way inherently to try and offend and hurt someone and make them upset, make them mad, and insult them. So I don't know how it's the same thing. I don't know how they're in the same
You're
category.
right, and you can do that with any word you want. The only reason why those words are on the list, I guess, is because in the past they were used to hurt people.
They still are. They still are. It's not in the past.
That's not very commonly. Not very commonly.
I think
you any instance you can come up with, I guarantee you, is a very, very, very rare instance.
I mean, listen. I think it's very, very, very ignorant for either of us as white guys to be like, yeah, I don't ever hear people say slurs, and I never hear that ever. And so what? It's so rare. It's like, yeah, no shit. But who are we to fucking? Like,
well, no. Obviously, people say slurs all the time. I'm talking about like you specifically to hurt individuals.
Yeah, nobody's saying
or hate crimes.
Nobody is saying slurs to hurt you as a white guy, and nobody is trying to commit a hate crime against you, the white guy. Just like they're not doing
people
that.
People call me an R slur all the time. Like people do try to hurt me with slurs. Like it's not uncommon.
Yeah, I exactly. So you just admitted that the R slur, using that, is not uncommon nowadays.
Yeah. It also, I don't think it's a slur. I'm only calling it a slur because you call it a slur and Twitch calls it a slur. I don't think it's a slur.
But the reason that it is a slur, and it quite literally is the definition of a slur, is because it is a word that is used to discriminate against a group of people for something that they cannot control.
Not as it's most commonly used.
That is
it's most commonly used as an unspecific insult. It's not usually a targeted insult.
It is. That's where it came from. That's why it's an insult to begin with.
Okay.
That's where it stemmed, and that's why it's an insult. Entirely.
All right. If I am calling someone, if I'm making fun of someone for having a developmental disability, specifically mental retardation, and I call them the R slur, that's fucked up. If I'm calling just some random dude on the internet who I have no reason to believe has a developmental disability, the R slur, what's the problem with that? Who exactly am I harming there?
You don't know if they have a disability or not, or if they've been affected in any way in their life by a disability. You don't know that. So why not just call them something that doesn't fucking equate to something
because
that
it's
they
catchy,
might not...
I don't know.
Right. If you want to, again, that's kind of a cop out, and an I don't give a shit. I'm edgy mentality.
It is kind of a cop out. I can't really give you a good answer for that. I'm terribly sorry.
Because I know there's not a good answer for it. It's the fact of the matter is it's not hard to use words or insult people. If you really need to insult somebody because you can't control your emotions, it's not hard to insult people with words that specifically describe people that have something that they can't control, and that word is used to discriminate against those people. It's not hard to put those words on a shelf and use another word. It's really not. And if it's so hard for you that you have to use those words because you have to be so edgy and you have to be so offensive, then yeah, I get it. You use your quote unquote gamer words and be as offensive as you want to be. But again, that's you just choosing to use those words because we're not going to play stupid. You're using those words because you know they make people mad.
Oh, from my perspective, it's like you're asking me not to call someone a stupid head, right?
It's not.
I'm not using it to offend people.
Stupid head is not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're using. It doesn't matter what you're using it for. The word itself is used for that reason. If you call someone a silly goose or a stupid head or whatever,
but that's not how I'm using it. I think that's very fucking important.
No, it's not. Because the word itself has weight and history behind it.
I think it is unreasonable to get offended over something that's not intended to offend you, specifically.
It is intended to. If you're insulting them with the word, you are intending to offend them. Absolutely. That is your goal. Is it not? Why else would you insult someone?
No. Typically when I'm calling someone the R slur, it's because because they said something so incredibly stupid that the only way that could be explained is if they had a developmental deficiency, but I know they don't.
But you're in again.
You're-
Okay, so what you're saying is you insult somebody as if they have a mental disorder?
No.
That's
No.
essentially
Not
what you
I
just said. Oh, they said something
No.
so stupid that I'm going to insult them as if they have a mental disorder. That's like
No.
basically what? How is that not what you
I
just said?
okay, because what I said was when typically when I'm calling someone the arsehole on the internet, it's because whatever they said was so incredibly stupid that the only explanation for that would be that they had a developmental disability, but I know for a fact they didn't.
How
So
do you
I
know for
they
a
don't
fact?
have developmental disability.
How do you know?
I'm 99% sure.
How? How could you be 99% sure?
Well, what do you want me to answer that for? Like, there's no way I could possibly know anything about someone on the internet.
Right, so you just went from saying that I'm 99% sure to there's no possible way I could know. You see, there's a pretty big difference between those two statements.
Right, because because 99% sure is based off vibes, and knowing for sure would be based off factual information, which you don't have.
You can't really tell a lot from somebody based on vibes. Whether or not I mean, there's a lot of people who have autism that are high functioning and can talk on the internet, but they still have, or people who have Tourette's, or people who.
Right, but autism isn't mental retardation. I see what you're getting at, though.
I'm saying people still use that word to bully people with autism. Especially people that are on the higher end of the spectrum, where it's more noticeable that they have autism, because autism is a wide spectrum. People with autism are absolutely.
I'll take your word for that, because I don't. That doesn't match with what I know. But if you insist, man.
I'm speaking about this because my daughter has autism, so I know a lot about autism. And autism can make you very socially awkward. It can make you not understand social cues. There's a lot of things that autism can.
Yeah, I know. Most of my friends are autistic.
So that's what I'm saying.
They don't get called because they're sorry. I'm terribly sorry. They don't get called the R slur because they're autistic. That's not something I've ever heard of happening from them. So maybe it's your town or something. I don't know, man.
I don't go around my town listening to people hear it. I'm talking about my experience with the world and the internet. But since you can't help yourself and you just had to let it slip, I'm going to let you go. You have yourself a good one. Holy shit, chat. What the fuck did I just get into here? I mean, I literally said in the fucking stipulations, he knew ahead of time he wasn't supposed to use any slurs, and he fucking just couldn't help himself. So I don't know. Yeah, he had a whole other thing he wanted to debate, too. This guy wanted to debate whether the game was killer-sided or survivor-sided, and we couldn't even get there because the guy just couldn't get off his fucking hill of using slurs. So I don't know. I don't know why you wanted to die on the hill so hard. It's like, if you want to be an asshole and use slurs and insult people, go ahead and just admit that you're toxic and being an asshole. That's fine. But just don't hide behind this little shield of, oh, I'm not toxic. It's just game trash talk. It's just game trash talk. I'm not being mean or toxic. No, dude. If you want to be Mr. Little Edgy Edgester, own that shit and just say, yeah, I'm a toxic asshole. We've all been 12 years old before. Like, we all understand to some degree. We've all been 12 years old. We've all been a little edgy when we were 12 years old, you know? He couldn't hold it in. No, he couldn't. He could not hold. He just couldn't help himself. The next person I'm debating said, I have to follow that guy up. I'm so sorry.